Welcome to the Red Shoe Realty podcast. My name is Stacey Sappington. I'm the broker owner of Red Shoe Realty, and this brokerage and this podcast are built for the agent to give you the tools and the knowledge you need to be successful. And today I'm so excited because I am with my friend and colleague, Tonette Pipkins with Nation's Reliable Lending. Tonnette, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Stacey. I greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you just a minute. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Okay. Like Stacey said, my name is Tonette Pipkins. I'm a loan officer with Nation's Reliable Lending. I've been in business a little bit over 10 years. Quick background for me. I went to school in California, San Diego State University. I ran professional track for Nike. Really enjoyed doing that. And my transition led into real estate.
I love that. I love that. And y'all, if you see this woman, she is definitely an athlete, towers over me, and I'm 5'10". I love it. Well, I'm so excited to have you here, especially to talk about this topic because the topic is student loans. And I think it's something that a lot of people get hung up on and think that there's no way that I can qualify for a mortgage with all of these student loans. It's kind of become the American way, right? Go to college, get loans. And so a lot of people are in this situation and it's not a deal breaker all the time. And so I want to unpack that. So let's just jump right in. Talk to me about how does student loans affect the approval process?
So student loans can be a make or break a deal. But I always tell clients, don't fret if you have student loans because the guidelines has actually been loosened in regards to getting qualified. So we use a certain calculation to get clients qualified if they're whether it's income-based or deferred. And every product is different. And the most common products is either FHA, conventional, or VA. And all three are actually calculated differently.
Of course.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So I'm going to pull out my calculator here and let's just talk through some scenarios and how student loans are viewed or looked at.
Okay, so we can start with conventional. And I always give this example of clients just want a quick, fast number of how to calculate student loans. Once again, don't recommend it. I recommend you reach out to a lender and get guidance of how to do it. But if you was curious on how to do it, let's just start with the $100,000 base. Okay. So the most common is income-based and deferred. Those are the two most common ones. If it's deferred and we go on conventional, you just take the balance, let's say $100,000. Okay. You times that by 1%. And you tell me what number you get.
1% is $1,000.
That will be your monthly payment. Okay. If we go LP, which is a different program under conventional, it'll be half of that. Okay. Which is $500.
Okay.
Okay, that's conventional. Don't want to confuse anybody. Two ways to qualify. If we go desktop underwriting, it's going to be exactly 1%. If we go LP, it's half of that number. So $500. That's conventional. If it's income-based, which is another big one for conventional, we have to have a 12-month rolling period. So let's say you got the same balance, $100,000, the monthly payment, I don't know, let's say it's $200. We take that number, we can honor it, but we will have to average it out for 12 months. It has to be 12 rolling months or whatever that income-based number is. Perfect example. Go ahead.
You go ahead with the example, and then I'll ask.
So let's say, Stacey, January 1st, 2022. Client is under income based, making their payments. They're good to go. They're excited that they give you a call. Hey, Stacey, I want to make an offer on a house. Of course, you're going to say, get with the lender. Let me put you in contact with someone to help you get qualified. And I take their application, do everything, realize they under income based. They already made 2 payments, January, February. Get ready to issue the pre-approval. But before I do that, I tell the client we have to have a 12-month rolling period. So they will have to reach out to their student loan provider, explain, hey, I'm getting ready to get qualified for a home loan, and I have to have this payment for a 12-month duration. So they will go in and re-amortize the loan, or they'll do a quick evaluation and get that updated. It takes 2 to 3 business days, depending on the provider, of course.
Okay, so they don't have to have made that new payment for 12 months.
They should be making the payment if they're already under income base, but I just have to have a 12-month rolling period, and it will have to be 12-month duration by the time that we close on that loan.
Okay. Okay. Of that payment actually being made.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then someone coming out of deferment that
Mhm.
has only made 2 payments,
Mhm.
then you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't have that 12-month rolling. And so you would have to use the calculation for whatever product we were going to be using.
Yes and no, because they still can reach back out. Just because they finish with school does not mean they don't qualify for the income base.
Okay.
Income base is strictly based upon their income and other things that they may ask for. So there's 2 separate components. So if a client is already income based coming out of school, but usually if you come out of school, you most likely going to be in deferment, unless
Right.
you work some kind of program out with that particular individual or that company. But normally when you finish school, you flip over to deferment because still payments are due while you actually in school.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another question I have for you is, what if someone is in default with
Okay.
their student loans?
Okay, so I want to back up just a little bit, Stacey,
Okay.
because I missed 2 products.
Okay. Yeah, you sure did. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I got
It's okay.
us
Don't
off
worry.
track.
Don't worry. So I gave the example for conventional.
Mhm.
FHA works the same way, but
Okay.
it will be same thing, $100,000. I always tell clients to not confuse themselves. Just make it basic, easy math. $100,000 times that number by 1%, and you should get $1,000.
Mhm.
Take that divided by 2, which should be $500.
Mhm.
That will be the payment for FHA.
Okay.
So it's that 0.5% for FHA.
Okay.
And when it comes to VA, that one is different.
Okay.
Same rule apply, but a little bit of extra step. You take the total balance
Okay.
times it by 5%, and then
Mhm.
you divide it by 12.
Okay.
That's for VA only.
Okay. So that
Yeah.
one's 417 approximately. So it's a little bit lower than the FHA calculation and significantly lower than the conventional calculation.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So a little bit different. So I just wanted to make sure we touched on FHA and also VA.
And I think, I think the big picture here on those calculations, I'm a numbers person, so I want to look at it and understand, but there are so many moving parts depending on what type of loan you're doing, whether it's in deferment or income based and so, I think it's important for us as agents when we have the situation, rather than try to do the calculation and help the client figure out, can they qualify, get them to the lender, encourage them to do an application, because it's not always a no just because of the student loans.
100%.
So I think that's the biggest myth, is that I can't qualify as long as I have student loans.
Yes.
And that is just not true. So rather than get bogged down in the calculation, just encourage them to do the application and let the expert do all of that, all the calculations, and figure out what's best.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I always tell agents, you're not by yourself. And clients even ask me questions that only an agent can answer. And I'll always say, that's a great question. Let me put you in contact with Stacey so she can, answer that question for you. So I always tell agents, like you just mentioned, just leverage. Hey, let me get you in contact with the lender and they'll be able to answer. So the clients don't feel discouraged, because it's so different now when it comes to qualifying with student loans. It's easier now because the guidelines are easier.
That's good. That's really good. I'm glad to hear that, because a lot of people have student loans. So that makes it easier for more people to purchase.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I think some people are in default. How does that affect the approval process?
Yeah. So it all depends on if it's attached to a federal loan or a private loan. If it's federal, we look at that a little bit different. Strong possibility you won't qualify if it's in default. I don't want to say yes, don't want to say no. So it's one of those things we got to dig a little bit deeper. If it's a private loan, those are more so forgiving if it's in default, getting qualified for a loan. but that puts you in a one size fit all box. Most likely FHA may be more forgiving, unlike conventional, same thing with VA, may be more forgiving. But we will have to fully evaluate the whole file, see what happened, gather the documentation on why they went into default, things like that. Or perhaps it could be a simple mistake. I mean, that's common, that it was reported incorrectly. So if you see any discrepancies on a credit reporting, it should be in default. All you got to just pick up the phone and call and ask questions, and they can get it updated. And once they revise it, we can use that documentation showing that you're not in default or was a mistake on the, error of the creditor.
Right. Well, and you know what I just thought of too, is because of COVID, there should be very few people that are in default. I guess if you were in default before COVID, because they really gave a lot of grace to people with student loans during that time, 0 interest, no payment. So I wouldn't think we'd see a whole lot of defaults right now.
You should not. I'm like you. If you do, I'll be very shocked as well. But if you are and you was affected, unfortunately, I hope not. But if you were affected by COVID, seriously, pick up the phone, call, explain your situation of what happened, and see what can be done.
Yeah, for sure. And, and along those same lines, they're really easy to work with. I have student loans. I hate that I have student loans, but I do. And they always work with whatever the situation is. So it's very easy to get that out of default and into deferment or an income-based payment.
Yeah. And I'm so happy you brought that up, because when you said get out of default or go into income-based, very, very clear. I want to be clear on this, because a lot of people qualify for income-based, Stacey, and it will show a 0 payment. That's very common, because once again, it's based upon income. So you submit documentation, they do an evaluation, and they can come back, you qualify for income-based, and it shows 0. Well, if it shows 0, now you fall in the category of those equations I just mentioned, either it's 1% or the 0.5% or the 25%, whatever the magic number is. So I want to be very clear. People can still qualify for income-based and show a 0 payment, but we can't honor 0. If it's truly 0, we will have to at that point, we will have to at that point, make the correct determination.
Okay. That's a good point. Okay. Well, I really love that we're having this conversation, because I think there's a lot of mystery around it, and a lot of people would rather just not even pursue it or explore it and assume that it would be an automatic decline. So
yeah, no, I would tell our clients, please don't think it's going to be an automatic decline. I mean, knowledge is power for sure, but applied knowledge is even more powerful. So just put yourself in position, ask questions. Even if it's a question you think you know the answer to, please ask, because guidelines, rules change all the time. By you and I talking right now, guidelines could be changing. Right. So, and I'm serious when I say that, because when COVID first hit, the mortgage industry pretty much was revamped, so many rules change, and guidelines here, guidelines there, and it's still changing. So please don't get consumed with what you think you may know or cannot do. Pick up the phone, ask the questions. This is why we're here, to consult and make sure we're best positioning the clients.
Exactly. That's the main goal. And listen, y'all, I can vouch for Tonnette. This woman, no matter what I suggest, hey, let's do a buyer workshop. Hey, let's make a video. She is on board, and she is a huge support to me and the agents at Red Shoe. And so I encourage you to reach out to her. You will be very happy that you did.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for being here.
You bet. Absolutely.
Okay, you guys, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Red Shoe Realty podcast, and we'll see you next time.